Hello viewers. So I hope you all are happy, healthy, safe at your home and maybe at your workplaces now, because now the phase of unlock starts. But our learning with the research is continued with you all. And with this, this video is dedicated to the true experimental research design. I again repeat the previous video's detail, because this series is purely talking about the various types of experimental research design. So this particular video talks about the true experimental design, which is extensively used in the behavioral research and in other kinds of research where we are seeing the cause and effect relationship. Because purely when we talk about the experimental research design, it is talking about the cause and effect relationship, considering the series of dependent and the independent variables. So this particular video is explaining the varieties of the true experimental design we are using in our research, depending on the objectives of the researchers and other parameters little bit. So not taking too much of time, again move to our presentation to have an in-depth understanding of the true experimental research design. So the next most important experimental design is the true experimental design. In this design, the researcher is able to eliminate the effect of extraneous variable from both the experimental and control group. The researcher can randomly assign test unit and treatment to an experimental group. Now, as I explained in my earlier video, that is on the pre-experimental design, there the randomization was not there, and also the extraneous effect was not to be minimized. That's why we were not considering those experiments as true experiments. But in true experimental design, the researcher tries to eliminate the effect of extraneous variable. Now, always remember one thing, that when we talk about the effect of extraneous variable, we want to improve the internal validity, and as the internal validity will be improved, so surely this external validity will also be improved. So this particular true experimental design includes pre-test, post-test control group, post-test only control group design, and Solomon 4 group design. Now let's have an understanding of all the design one by one. Let's start with pre-test, post-test control group. This pre-test, post-test control group, as you can see, the diagram is showing we have experimental group, we have control group. As you can see with the help of the diagram, that we have the observation 1. Then after having this treatment X, it is denoting treatment. Then we have the observation 2. But in control, as we are not giving any treatment, so we have observations at the time when we are having the observations of experimental group, and then after the treatment. So that time period we have to remember, and we have to take all these observations, and then effect is to be checked by this O2 minus O1 and O4 minus O3. So this example will further clear you this pre-test, post-test control group. That is, for an example, if you want to see any advertising treatment and if you want to see the effect of that. So as you can see in the example, 20% brand awareness among subjects before an advertising treatment, 35% in experimental group and 22% in control group after the treatment. So treatment effect equals to 13% by putting the values. So this is basically when we have both the groups, and we are going for the pre-test and post-test. We are having 4 set of observations, and that difference will give the results, and then the researchers analyze it accordingly. So after having this pre-test, post-test understanding, then have the post-test only control group design. Now in this, the experimental group tested after treatment exposure, control group tested at same time without exposure to experimental treatment. And again I repeat that experimental group, which is always exposed to the novel conditions, and control group. And why we go for these 2 different groups? Because to understand the effect of a particular phenomena or a particular you can say program or process we are introducing, or the researcher wants to introduce, or researcher introduce. So definitely it also includes the random assignments, and again in the same in this like the previous design, the extraneous variable effect is assumed to be the same on both the groups. Usually this situation is used when we cannot go for pre-testing. Now maybe sometimes when you are launching some new thing, so you cannot go for pre-testing, you can only go for the post-test. So definitely in that case you go for post-test only with control group design. Now understand this further within the diagram form, that as you can see that in the diagram, experimental group, there is no pre-test, so there is no previous observations. After introducing the treatment, we have the observations, and then control group, we have observations, and the difference is O2 minus O1. For an example, we are making any kind of remedy, or you are manufacturing anything. So in that, you want to see that yes, your product is better than the competitor. So you may have two groups to assess that, and in that you cannot assess the effectiveness of remedy. The pre-testing cannot be done. So definitely, once your one group is exposed to that your exact remedy which you are introducing, and other group which is not using it, you will have the difference between these two groups, and then definitely you'll be able to understand that what kind of remedy is being given by your product and how it is better than your competitor's product. So that way it is very clear. The further important design, which includes usually all the pre and the post conditions, is known as Solomon four group design. Now this is, yes, little bit we call it as an ideal controlled experiment, because here we are introducing all the conditions. See, when we go for the experimental design, or when we go for the experiment, it is always important to understand what is there before going for that experiment and what is there after that experiment. So if we are considering all the situations, all the before after situations, it will be more, the researcher will be able to generalize his results in a better way. So that is very important to understand. So this Solomon four group design is also referred as ideal controlled experiment. It provides means for controlling the interactive testing effect and other sources of extraneous variations. Now, interactive means that whenever you go for this experimental design, sometimes whenever you interact with the research group or the control group or the experiment group, then definitely that testing effect is to be taken into consideration. All the parameters related to your experimental research has to be taken into consideration, because then otherwise it will affect your results, and it can be said that your results are biased and one cannot generalize that. So definitely we have to understand that basically this design minimize all the extraneous variations and also the testing effects, and it includes random assignment. Obviously, when we talk about this is ideal control experiment, so surely it is going for the random assignment. Now, when you talk about this design, this diagram will clear you the further this four group design. As you can see here, we have four groups. That's why it is called as Solomon four group design. Experimental group 1 and 2, then control group 1 and 2. Now, as you can see that when we talk about experimental group 1, that means it is having before observation and then after observation. In control group also before and then after. That time period is there. Maybe if we are saying this is T1, this is T2, different time period is there. Then in experimental group 2, we have directly the experiment with the by intervening the treatment and then the observation, and in control group directly the observations. And then likewise the different formulas are given in this slide. The dependent variable, the pre-testing, then pre-testing and measuring, and random assignment. So likewise this the difference is being taken, and definitely this difference will help to give a better understanding of the experimental design, and the researcher will be able to give the you can say accurate results. This is little bit complicated in critical design, so usually it is used to measure the impact of large number of variables, the fields or the areas where we have large number of variables, and it is important to measure the effect of those variables. So generally it is used in measuring the impact of the variables on agriculture productivity, yields, and other related issues. So with the examples, it is clear that in case of agriculture, or in case of the parallel fields like agriculture, where we have the fixed structure, like we can measure, we can fix, we can have the blocks, and then we can have a set of variables and can see the effect, then it is more important to go for this four group design. And also it can be used in marketing research, or also the behavioral research, where lot of parameters are there, lot of variables are there to study and to read with. So it is little bit complicated research design. So whenever it is being used, it is being used in an extensive way, and surely in those fields where there are large number of variables to be dealt with, or large number of parameters to be dealt with. So this is basically about the true experimental design. The researcher, again I always repeat in my videos, that researcher first of all primarily understand the type of the research design, experimental research design. First of all, have to understand that whether they want to go for the research experimental research design. That means they are going for this cause and effect relationship. Are they going for it? If they are going for this cause and effect, surely this experimental research design will intervene. And then in that case, observing their own situations, they may select one or the other type of research design and then can proceed further in their research process. So with this, thank you to all. And for any kind of query, you can mail on learnwithharmony@gmail.com. Thank you.